This is where business ideas and passions turn into profit. Whether you're dreaming of becoming your own boss but don't know how to get started, or have already started a side hustle and wish to grow it exponentially, your host, Victoria Wieck, can help you turn your passion-based business ideas into profit. Welcome to Million Dollar Passion. Here is your host, world-renowned jewelry designer and home shopping TV celebrity, Victoria Wieck.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Million Dollar Passion podcast. Today, I have somebody, very different kind of episode, and it has to do with your safety. And we're talking about like literal safety. I think that's really important these days. And I'll tell you what, I've got somebody who's got an extraordinary background in this, because my guest, Corey Jones, was with the police department. He was in law enforcement for 25 years, everything from SWAT team to community policing, supervising, internal affairs, you name it. He's done everything. So he understands how every party feels. He understands how, things work, like in the police department, and how they should interact with, communities, and how we can all feel safe. Anyway, he's a very interesting person. Now, as his way of paying back, he's got a couple of community service type thing. He's got a TV show hosted by Radio Vision Network called the Ready with Safetyman and the Corey Jones Show. And he's also got two different podcasts to help you understand how you can keep your family safe and also do your part in your community as well. So welcome to the show, Corey.
Thank you so much, Victoria. I really appreciate you welcoming me on. Like you said, it's really early over where you're in California. Here in Jersey, I'm looking outside. I see birds flying around. It's beautiful out here. It's a beautiful day. Hopefully have a great talk.
Yeah, we will. So when I look at your resume and your, bio, it's kind of scary, all the things you've gone through and you've done. Okay, so, when you see words like lethal weapons and, things like that, and the SWAT team, thank God I've not had to, act with one, in an active situation. But you literally have done everything from, just diffusing just a little thing around the community to some of the most lethal kind of events. So I'm just really looking forward to this conversation about how we can feel safe. And I guess that's a vague word, meaning that it's some people have different tolerances, but how we can feel safe, how can we can keep our employees safe, our businesses safe. What do you think is the biggest problem out there in your, not just in recent months, but in the last 25 years of experience? What do you think is the top three things that people should be aware of to keep themselves safe? And why is that the word safety such an elusive word?
Well, Victoria, you hit the first word, you hit the nail right on the head. Just last week, I was on the news, NBC local to Philadelphia, speaking about the rise in carjackings. And it's happening in a lot of big cities across America, starting in 2020 and even in 2022. They're still unfortunately setting records that no one's proud of for the amount of carjackings, some of which are fatal. So my message to everybody who's potentially involved in a carjack is the 3 A's, right? The first one would be awareness. I'm going to pretend I'm training a Secret Service agent, right? I've had some training with Secret Service. Some dignitaries have come to my town. It's that awareness, right? That situational awareness. Whenever you see a Secret Service person, their head is on a swivel. They're looking around. That second A is going to be avoidance. Let's avoid bad areas and avoid negative behavior. Let's not be walking around in transitional spaces or that area from our office to our car, or when we're at a red light or a stop sign, when our head is buried in our cell phone, trying to update that Facebook or return that cell message that can wait for a safe place. And that last A is going to be action. We want to have a plan that we already talked about of what action is going to be. Am I going to surrender? Am I going to escape the X, get off the X, drive away quickly? Or am I going to fight for the lives of the people that are in my car, including my own, my kids, my significant other, or some other person that's in the car? So there's 3 A's: that awareness, that avoidance, and that action are the three things that I want everybody to take with them, man, woman, at home, at work, any place.
You know what? I didn't think about it in this way that's very analytical, but as a female business owner, and I've traveled, I'd say 4 million miles, on flights. And I've been to literally countries where, think bombs were just literally flying over. And when you're traveling, you don't know those things are happening while you're in air. I remember one
Right.
time I was flying into Abu Dhabi, and unbeknownst to me, I took a flight from Hong Kong to Bahrain. That's how I got to Abu Dhabi.
Mhm.
There was a bombing by U.S. forces in Lebanon, and it was all over the place. And so you just don't know sometimes the situation that you're going to get into. And so when I travel, for example, like you said, I always book. When I book my flights as well as my hotels, I always go online to see like how well it's lit. How far is it from the parking? Is it underground parking to the front door? And then I look at all the reviews to see. So like I'll do what I can, and then when I get there, if it's late at night, I would actually go to the front desk and say, I feel a little bit uncomfortable parking my car over there and walking by myself at midnight. So would it be okay if I just left my car here? And most of the hotels will actually let you do that.
Mhm.
The thing so your idea of awareness, you doing your research and avoiding potential problems, just being aware of that and avoiding all the things you could do ahead of time. I mean, bad things could still happen to you, but you got to do your part, right?
Yes.
Then the part I don't understand is action. How do
Mhm.
you know when you surrender or fight? I mean, that like that's kind of fearful. If you think about somebody coming after you and they've got a weapon, or I'm looking at somebody who's like a lot larger than me who's got bad intentions, right? So how
Mhm.
do you know if you're safer just to surrender, or are you better off just trying to fight for something? And if you do fight, what do you fight with?
Well, Victoria, that's a great question. I just want to commend you first off. You're teaching my class for me that I teach
I
people
didn't
when I
mean
go
to.
places.
I didn't
So
mean.
it's fantastic that when you travel, you do some pre-operational surveillance, right? You do that situational awareness. You know where you're going to be, how to get from the airport to your hotel or your place of work. You know where you're going to park. You found something that made you feel unsafe, so you wanted to avoid that. So then you took action by going and speaking to the front desk to get your car parked in a safer place, so you could do that. Secondarily, you could have somebody walk you to your car, watch you walk to your car to make sure you're safe. So to your specific question of how do you know what action to take? Well, you want to know what your skill level is, what your line is. Everybody has a line of what they're going to allow somebody to do to them before they decide to fight. If you're by yourself, that line may be one place. If you're with a significant other, the line may be another place. And if you're with children, that line may be even in a third place. So you have to come to terms personally with yourself that if I take action, I'm going to fight 100%. Now, I recommend that everybody go to a few self-defense classes. In most areas, there are self-defense classes that are offered where it's women only, so you don't have to have that awkwardness of having a hot, sweaty male that you never met laying on top of you. But I think that just an exposure of what that feels like, some of the techniques that are going to tell you how to defeat a hair pull, a wrist grab, a purse grab, and so forth. So again, I teach my clients to verbally try to surrender. Put your hands in a neutral but protective position. Hey, I'm going to cooperate. I'm going to give you what you want. You want my wallet? You want my purse? Here it is. And then throw it far away. If they go after the money or the purse or the cell phone or the item, the watch, the
Give it.
jewelry that you threw, you run the other way. If they're chasing you, it's no longer a property crime. Then it becomes a personal crime. And then we're going to have to fight. We're going to have to attack the eyes, the throat, the groin, and eliminate their ability to see, to breathe, and to stand.
You know what, guys? Really listen to what Corey is saying. Also, I just want to say that before you even do that, check out his two podcasts. One is called Safetyman Consulting Podcast, and the other one is called Safetyman Podcast. And I'll tell you why this is really important. You know, Safety is the kind of thing that it's a continuum. You can never be safe enough. For example, I was robbed here at my home. It was about, I want to
I'm
say,
sorry.
I think. And you know what? I live in an incredibly safe area. If you look at like the safety rating by the government, it's like the number 2 or 3 safest place in United States. And that's why I came here. And most of my neighbors actually don't even lock their doors. I mean, it's one of the, and it's pretty rural where I live. So it's hard for people to get out of here. So I've lived here since 2004 and felt really safe. But I've got a husband who's like a real paranoid person when it comes to his family safety. So, we have an alarm system. We have, like security cameras. And we also have the alarm system where it actually does a motion detector. And we have community policing here. So, our community police area, like we actually have a like a patrol service that's very active, and
Mhm,
that the headquarters for that is literally 2 minutes flat from my home. So
mhm.
you would think that you feel safe, and I felt pretty safe. But he always, he would always lock the doors, all the doors, and he would always turn the alarm when we leave. And so we did that day.
You got a good man.
But I have to tell you something. But it was my mother-in-law's. So my mother-in-law had passed away, and we were all of us were out. We had a remodel going on, so I'm not sure. We're still trying to figure out who's who here. But basically, when the motion detector company called and told us there's a security breach, we got an alarm that went off. We were literally on our block that our house is only on a street that only runs one block. So we were on our block, and it was pitch black about 9 o'clock at night, but it was dark at that time. And I told a guy it's probably a false alarm because the motion detector was set pretty high, and we are on our block. So I'm just gonna let's just go back home and see what's there. And we have a private gate, and that our own home has a private gate, and it opens really slowly. So if somebody's driving away, you could kind of see it because I'm on this block here. Do you know when I got home, I still didn't see anything, and the gate was closed. The gate takes a full 45 seconds or so to open, and then it's a long driveway.
Mhm.
Get there. So what happened was we enter the house. My dog is going crazy, and it looks like the people who robbed our house were still in the backyard.
Mhm.
I didn't know it at the time, but so the community police had already gotten here because my neighbors had already called them, and everything going off. So we all got here at the same time within 2 minutes. And basically the sheriff's department, as well as the community, the patrol here, said that the robbers know that once the alarm goes off, that they have a full 2 minutes before they
Mhm.
have to get out. Because when the alarm goes off, they first call the landline, then they call the cell phone line. Then it takes, anybody 2 minutes to get there.
Right.
So they know that they have somewhere between 2 to 5 minutes while they have to get out. And they took exactly like 3 minutes to get out. And they were probably still in the backyard because the way that my dog was like, behaving.
Right.
So, the only thing I can say is I took all the precautions, but my feeling right at that time was like, are they still in here? Are
Mhm.
they still in the house?
Mhm.
And secondly, I'm just glad that that they didn't come after us with bodily harm. They
Right.
or
Right.
stuff like that. So what I'm saying is that if you feel like you're safe because you live in a safe area, and there you don't really crime is not a huge concern, it could hit you from everywhere. And I would say that you should probably just listen to a podcast. Is basically free, and the radio show, because safety is real. I mean, it only takes is one incident. uh, Both we found out afterwards that the good news about this is my house is almost you can probably see it, it's almost all glass, the very very California home. And they literally had to it's all tempered proof glass, so they had to kind of take it with the crowbar, and they had to take the glass piece by piece to just have to be able to put their hand through. So they left some blood drops here, so we're able to get the DNA. I don't know what's going to happen here, but they told us that they hit, we were like the eighth home that they hit in this area.
Mhm.
So they were very quick, and all the areas they hit were all super safe areas, and it just took them 2 minutes. And there was one woman that was raped actually, like about 4 miles down the street. So I'm just like, I just feel glad that, like they didn't kill us or, take us hostage. I mean, who knows what they would do if you entered the home while
Right.
they're here, right? So safety is something you take very seriously. Now, in your background, when you're talking about, I just want to talk just briefly about when you see a policeman, for example. um, some people, they're scared of police. Some people feel like they're very safe. The police are, quite a few policemen are there. I actually have mixed feelings about that. So,
Mhm.
what do you think the origin of that is, and how can we, do we reach out to the neighborhood police stations and see if they can come and, talk to us? Like, how does that work in terms of the community versus the law enforcement that's around us that's supposed to help you?
I'm really glad you asked me that question, Victoria, because I'm personally, as a retired 27-year police officer, I'm tired of going to parties and people find out that I used to be a police officer and I still sometimes engage in training law enforcement officers, that they give me the bad story. They had this interaction they consider negative with a law enforcement officer. So one of my life's mission is not only to make people safe, but to make people feel safe with the police and to make the police better. Let's be honest.
Right.
Law enforcement, we had some rough edges. We had some things that we had to fix. We still have some things that we have to fix. One of the things I teach law enforcement officers is verbal judo, verbal de-escalation, treating
Right.
people with dignity and respect.
Right.
I can come up to you and say, give me your license. Or I could say, hey, ma'am, I'm Corey Jones from your local police department. And the reason I'm talking to you is we had a report of a suspicious person in this yard. Are you allowed to be here? Is everything okay? That sounds much, much better. I can get a better result as a law enforcement officer doing that way. So I just want you and your listeners and viewers to know that law enforcement officers across the country are really focusing on verbal de-escalation and treating people with dignity and respect. What I would tell citizens to do is, to answer your question, is you can absolutely have an officer from the community policing division or their public affairs division come to a local meeting that you have, whether it be a neighborhood watch, a community meeting that you had, or a community event. If you're having a barbecue, they'll come out, they'll play with the kids, they'll answer all the questions that you have about how many officers are working, what their crime rate is, their response time is, and so forth, and kind of help ease those concerns and show that positive image that we're trying to do. Because in my career, I've trained with law enforcement agencies from federal, state, local, and county, from the East Coast to the West Coast, and some from outside of this country. And the vast, 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 overwhelming majority, high 98% of them, were professional people that I would trust coming into my house to rescue my wife and kids if I were traveling abroad. There are those bad apples, and unfortunately, they're the ones that get plastered all over the media. And then what do we do as citizens? We see that and we think that all the rest of them are the same way. And they're not. They're not. I was in charge. I was in internal affairs. And if somebody did something wrong, we could either handle it with additional training, we could handle it with minor discipline, major discipline, or we could fire that person. And I've been involved in all of those things.
It's interesting. I have to tell you a funny story. I was flying, for years and years and years. I was doing my show on the Home Shopping Network for 20 years. And I flew the first few times I flew into Tampa. I didn't know the lay of the land, and they didn't have the GPS like they used to have now. And so, you had those little maps, and I'm just a very dyslexic person. I'm just not very good at directions. When somebody says northeast, I don't even know if that's a left turn or right turn. It's just crazy. So I was driving, and a policeman, like, I see this flashing lights. And so I pull over, and I'm like literally on a bridge. Like, it's not an off ramp or anything, and it's one of those bridges that go a few miles. So I pull over, and so the two policemen come out, and I guess he was trying to say something to me. And I had just watched, and I watch a lot of those crime shows like on Snapped. I just think it's like so bizarre people can actually kill somebody, and just
Uh-huh.
it just
Mhm.
anyway, I'm kind of addicted to the show. And I just watched a California sheriff. It's a true story. California sheriff, officer who had like assaulted, and he was in prison at this point. So it was very fresh on my mind. So when the officer that stopped me, walked over, I just like lowered the window like this much
Mhm.
so that I could speak to him. And I asked him if I can take a picture of his badge.
Mhm.
And so I basically called in his badge number, not to his police station, but to my husband and everybody. I'm in Tampa, stopped over, I
Mhm.
took the job ramp. And so I lowered the thing, and he said that your taillights aren't working or something. I can't remember what it was. It was something minor.
Mhm.
And I said to him, it's a rental car. I didn't know that. And I'm here, I'm lost. So I might have been weaving a little bit. I'm not sure because I'm reading this map. So he said, no problem. And he asked me for my driver's license. So I went ahead and gave it to him. And these two, officers actually escorted me all the way to my destination, which was a few miles, and they were very, very pleasant. My robbery here, I was like really freaked out. And because we were literally coming back from the viewing of my mother-in-law who had just passed away, like, a few days before.
Mhm.
And we were just we didn't even know what to think because that was the last thing we thought we were going to deal with that day.
Right.
But they were very calm. And they went through, they asked me to step outside because it was not safe. And they went through the whole house, the backyard, the front yard, went to my next door neighbor's yard, all this stuff. And then the next, he also told us that there are some security issues. If I wanted to feel very safe, they're going to go ahead and make some recommendations as to, because we had security cameras, but they weren't pointed at, the right places where, the entry points and things like
Mhm.
that. So they basically gave us a whole recommendation. They walked through room by room. And, like, for example, I have those flashing lights now where it's like a motion detected lights. So it just kind of shocks people. So then
Right.
hardwired.
Mhm.
So they were very, very nice. At the same time, though, I still remember times when, sometimes I'm stopped over for something. And like you said, an officer might say something like, you want to step outside. And I'm like, oh, what did I do wrong? And,
Right.
they
Right.
don't want to talk to you. They kind of treat you like you were drinking or something. And I don't actually even drink, but
Mhm.
um, so when you do have that, you do have to kind of, I think a lot of that has to do with your background and the because people, their minds go to the worst experience they ever had, right?
Yes.
And they go to the worst thing that could happen. So I just want to make sure that, safety is something that we have to take very seriously because, we don't have any control over that. And
Mhm.
secondly, if you're going to be safe, you're going to need officers to help you. They're the one you're going
Yes.
to call when you're in trouble, and you might
Absolutely. And I
start.
wanted to let you know, you brought up if you're potentially stopped by someone and you're not sure if it's a real police officer.
Hey,
I have a podcast that deals exactly with that, exactly what you're supposed to do if you think that you're not being stopped by an actual police officer. And the main thing is turn on your four-way flashers, reduce your speed to the speed limit, pull over to the right, but not all the way over if you're unsafe. Call 911. 911 is everywhere in the United States. And if you have an idea of where you are, the 911 operator will be able to locate that police officer attempting to stop you and will be able to verify if in fact it is a legitimate police officer. And that little bit of time that you took
yeah,
with your four ways on is not going to make that police officer any more upset because that 911 operator is also going to communicate with that police officer that your motorist was trying to verify because they were scared. So that is well within the law as long
okay,
as you are not committing any additional motor vehicle violations when you do that. I talk about some other things in the podcast too, but again, I want to congratulate you because you just told two positive stories and you are, even if you're doing it subconsciously, you're balancing them against some of the negative experience and stories you had, and you're giving each officer or officers a chance to do the right thing. And two of those stories that you told me, they were right out of the playbook of how I would train my officers. The one on the car stop, finding out who you are, identifying you, making sure you're not a criminal or you're wanted, and then helping you to your destination safely. And the second one, getting you out of the danger zone of your house that was just recently burglarized, where it's still being occupied by dangerous, desperate, armed people, and clearing that for you. And then going so far as to give you some tips and techniques to make your house safer, to prevent that type of situation, or worse, like you said, some sort of an assault from happening later. So they were right out of the playbook. So I want everybody listening to understand that, again, the vast majority of the police officers don't have crystal balls. We don't know what we're
Right.
going to show up to. We know what dispatch tells us, but it's often inaccurate because that's based on a 911 call from an upset person. So we have to handle everybody as a potential suspect. And then my job is to be able to teach officers how to handle a person as a potential suspect while still treating them with dignity and respect.
Right. I mean, I think also the police officers that came here, sheriff's officers that came here, is the detective. I'm able to call him, and he usually returns my call. I thought he'd be like so busy because you got murders to deal with or whatever.
Mhm.
I've just got the robbery thing going, so I feel a little guilty when I do the follow-up calls. But I'm not really interested in even like getting my things back. I'm just interested in making sure that that person doesn't go out and do any more harm. And I don't, the other biggest fear is like, what if they come back because they didn't get all they wanted, because we
Right.
came back, we didn't come back at 5 minutes, we came back within a minute from
Mhm.
when we got there. So again, I think I just love the idea of having some sort of a collaboration with your law enforcement officers, whether they're the sheriffs or the police, or or community policing, the understanding of because if they're freaked out that you may actually be the suspect, they're freaked out that suspects might actually be there trying to hurt them, and then you got the victims that are also pretty freaked out as well.
Mhm.
So I think I would just say, wouldn't you say that just over communicating and just having a little bit more tolerance and giving everybody a little bit more benefit of the doubt might be like might help a lot of the situations that we don't have to face unnecessarily these days.
The collaboration between law enforcement and community, we kind of touched on that already by
Yeah.
inviting your law enforcement officers to your business, to your resident, to any, if you're having a block party or something like that, inviting them out. You got to lure them with donuts and coffee, though. Just haven't been a cop. You got to lure them with something exciting for them, too. Just like if you want to get kids to come, you got to have candy. You want to get guys to come someplace, you got to have beer. You want to get cops to come place, you got to have donuts and coffee. Have them come through your business, check your business out. So it's the first time they're there, it's not during an emergency. The first time they're on your block, it's not during an emergency. And then transition that to all your neighbors working together. You said, so when you responded to the incident at your home, your neighbors were there also, and they actually called because they heard the loud audible sirens, which is good. So have that plan in place where everybody's looking out for each other. They're reporting suspicious vehicles immediately to the police department, and having that local 2-minute response time, use that to your advantage. We want to scare those bad guys away. We want them to know that when they're out there pre-planning and doing just like we did, that situational awareness, they're doing that pre-operational surveillance. We want them to get caught, and we want them to see that they're not going to be able to get away with this in the fashion they wanted to.
Yeah, no, I think everything that you said makes complete sense in many ways. There are, things that we don't really think about because, crime is something you don't think about until it actually happens to you for most people.
Mhm.
Luckily for me, I was in the jewelry business, so we were always targets, and, I went through a lot of safety training and that kind of stuff. But I just really wanted to commend you for everything you've done, all the service that you've given to your community, to this country, and also what you're doing now. It's just educating, just all of us on how to keep you safe. You feel safe. That's the other thing too. Is being safe is one thing, but also feel safe enough where you can actually function at your maximum. And I just love that, and all the things that you can do now to preemptively prevent some of those, things that could happen, or just being aware. Like going back to your 3 A's, being
Mhm.
aware, avoiding, and also taking action. I love that. So for those of you who are interested in more safety, and like I said, I can't stress enough to you how that important that is to listen to someone like Corey, who's been there for a really long time, to prevent anything like what had happened to me. I mean, luckily, the only thing that happened to me was they took a bunch of jewelry and I designed jewelry. So it's not like, you know,
Mhm.
all that devastating to me
Yeah.
for per se, but it was really an eye awakening experience and kind of a shake up moment for me as well. So go listen to Corey's I'll have you tell where people can listen to you, how they connect with you, and they could also get you to speak in their events nationwide, virtually or in person.
Yeah,
How?
absolutely. Thank you for that, Victoria, and thank you for those words of confidence. They can go to my website, which is right down there on the bottom of my screen, www.safetyman, all one word, .co. There's no M there, safetyman.co, and they can have me come out. I can teach verbal de-escalation, crisis management, active shooter preparation. I could come out and speak specifically to women business leaders and teach them different things that they want to do to prepare themselves for internal or external problems, to help with the quote Me Too movement and all different types of things and how they can report that. They can look at my website, my podcast channel, which is Safetyman Podcast or Safetyman Consulting, and then my YouTube channel, which is Safetyman Consulting. And everything that's on the podcast channel is also on the YouTube channel. So if you like the smiling face, you can watch it on YouTube. If you want to listen to it on your ride home, you can go right to the podcast, and I update them weekly. And you'll find that the common theme is making those preparations and making those plans, communicating those plans of who you're with, and then making those plans happen or taking action if something does kick off.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for coming in and sharing your expertise and your time with us, and also all the places that we can connect with you. And those are all free channels, by the way. So you don't have to, literally, it's just an investment in a little bit of time for you to get super aware of what's going on. And until next time, I wish you safety and happiness. And remember, happiness is a choice. And I hope you make great choices this week. Thank you. And thank you so much for coming, Corey.
Thank you, Victoria. And again, stay safe.
You've been listening to $1 Million Passion, where we turn dreams into reality and passion into profit. According to ancient Chinese proverb, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Congratulations on taking that first step today. For more information on how Victoria can help you turn your business idea into $1 million, and to download Victoria's free ebook on passion-based business ideas, visit $1,000,000passion.com. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the show on your favorite podcast player.